Sex Therapy, and I'm so excited to be here today. I'm feeling good. It's Friday. It's Friday in the spring in Atlanta, so this should be just really exciting. This is a really cool time of year for us. It's right before it gets too hot, so you can enjoy being outside, being on a nice patio with a margarita or something before the heat hot Atlanta drives you back inside. With that, so good morning to everybody, and today we're going to talk about when, what, and how to have the sexual conversation with a new partner. And so I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say, but let's just check in with everybody. So Jessica Renard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
Yay, happy to have you. Jessica Addison, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about this topic today.
That's good. Are you cold-natured? I feel like
I keep my apartment cold. I keep my apartment really cold. I like being cold.
I like being cold too. All right. Good morning, Sherry. How are you today?
Doing good. I'm like you. I'm happy it's Friday.
Right? I got a full day, but I'll be free. So in a minute, if I can just make it to 6:30, I'll be free for 2 days. Okay. All right. So who wants to start? When, what, and how do you start the sexual conversation with a new partner? And what do you think the conversation should include? All of that jazz. Jessica Renard, we're gonna go with you first.
Sure. So first of all, it should happen.
Yes, please.
The importance
please.
of it happening cannot be overstressed.
Yes.
And I mean, now mind you, I am saying this from somebody who has not taken this advice and it not turned out well. So please learn from mistakes made. So one, yes, it should absolutely happen. Two, I think there are a lot of different conventionalities or like rules around when sex should happen or when intimacy should happen in a relationship, which can be very confusing because one, we're assuming that you're ready to kiss somebody on the first date, which may not be the case.
Right.
And then because I'm also a matchmaker, I have also been learning that attraction doesn't happen immediately. And if you're not ready to go to bed with them on that first date, that's okay. Like, not only is that okay, that's probably favorable because you're not going to get distracted or fall into intimacy so quickly that you don't even know whether or not you're a match for each other.
Right.
So those are the things that I would kind of look at. And then once you're in the fourth date or fifth date, like that's probably when to start fishing around that pond of, what does that look like? And while I used a euphemism or a metaphor, don't use euphemisms or metaphors.
Okay. Now that makes sense. Yeah.
Like if we're going to start talking about sex, like make sure the word sex is in there so that we all know what we're talking about. Talking about past partners, like maybe you don't want to know the details, but maybe you need to know how many, or maybe you don't care about how many, but you want to know how recently they went and got an STI check, or, how recently the most recent partner was. Because sometimes STIs don't show up for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
And so if you got a doctor's visit 2 weeks after that last encounter, that's not accurate. And so just being aware of some of those things, but I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to pause and let somebody else go.
I want to say real quick, and then I'm going to give it to you, Jessica Addison, and then Sherry. But I want to say real quick that I've recently heard that AIDS is on the rise again. And so that's definitely a conversation around testing that I want to make sure people are having when they're dating with that. All right, Jessica Addison, what are you? When, what, how do we talk about sex with a new partner?
I think it should go past the standard question of how many partners have you been with and what's your number. I think it's not a set time that you should do it, because just like when you're on a first date, what do you do? What kind of person are you looking for? Sex is a part of all of those different elements in trying to get to know this person. And do you want to go a step further with this person? So never think that if I bring up sex, I'm doing too much or I'm being pushy, because it's a conversation that needs to happen. And first, when you initially meet somebody, it's the fireworks that's going on. That first phase of love, like it's just googly eyes and honeymoon stage. And let's be real, we're thinking I'm sexually attracted to this person, or I hope you are sexually attracted to this person, and you want to know what they're into. And then a conversation of consent, because you might try something that might be a trigger for them. It might be some trauma behind certain things that you think, hey, that's just like first base. So does that alarm anything in you? So having that conversation of consent, things that you're into, different kinks you're into, something that you want to explore. And I think now they're kind of normalizing it, because I know with my clients, I bring up a card game that I have for myself personally that has like a conversation starter. It's called Let's Have the Conversation Tonight After Dark Edition. And they have questions about like, do you like the lights on, lights off? What's something sexual you've done that your mother would disown you for? Like different funny things like that. And just kind of breaking the ice about sexual like activities and sexual behaviors.
Oh, good. All right, Sharon, what's coming up for you? What are you thinking? When, where, what for a new partner?
Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. I'm really thinking life stages could be a factor in how you have a sex conversation. And I'm
Ooh,
really
good one.
thinking that know when a sex conversation is happening, and generationally, a sex conversation can look very different. Because
Good
I believe
point.
in my generation, we definitely had sex conversations, but they just might not have sound so uniform and so educational. You might be like, look, this is what I'm not doing in the bed. I know that I don't have anything. And what you like? Because, so it could go a list like that. Hey, look, don't try to have sex with me with no lights off. It may not be from a place where somebody may say, well, I've experienced this and I've experienced that, because they may not be in a place where they want to trust you with that type of information. They just be in a place, they might just be in a place to tell you, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna not do. This is last time I've been to the doctor. I know I ain't got nothing because I ain't had sex since 2022. And I went to the OBGY. What about you? And then that's a sex conversation that answers everything that they need to know to be comfortable to have sex. And so I'm not sure whether today's generation is with these things, because I just think it's a difference, because I totally believe we've had conversations about sex when I was younger. We were dating, they just didn't sound so, it was just what it was, like, so you have to have those conversations based, they have to be culturally appropriate, using the language that you understand, and you just be happy. And then you understand that, oh, this conversation did happen. I did talk about the last time I've been to the doctor. I did talk about my dis and dislikes, and you are both satisfied, because growing up, I don't quite remember any of my girlfriends and any male friends just literally jumping in the sack with a person without any type of conversation.
Gotcha. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. As far as when the sex conversation should happen, I think it should happen multiple times, because I would want a couple to get in a habit of just good communication, or a new partner, good communication. And also, I think we've all had conversations with people and we can't remember that conversation 2-3 years ago. And so I think it should be something that's ongoing with that. When the first time the conversation needs to happen is when you guys start talking about sex. And so when it kind of naturally comes up in the conversation, then that's when you also want to ask whatever your big major questions are. I would love for your major questions to be, How are we going to keep ourselves sexually safe? What methods do you prefer? If pregnancy is a possibility, how are we going to protect against pregnancy? I do not think the pull-out method is the best method. I just don't. And so please be conscious about that. How do you plan to protect our sexual relationships once we enter into sex? Like, are you still going to be having sex with 20 other people? Okay, that's fine. Or however you'd like to do it, what's okay and what's not okay with that, and making sure there's a plan for protection. Because we could have both had STD tests 5 months ago and we both be clean. But if I'm just dating and having sex with you casually, and I'm dating 6 other people and having sex with them casually, I'm telling you now, somebody in that mix is bound to have herpes. That's too high of a number. And some people do roll like that. So being able to do that. Also, if you introduce the conversation, you set the precedent for this is something that we can talk about with ease in the relationship. Like if you are like, well, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to say anything, then your partner may pick up on your anxiety and feel like they can't talk to you about that. And then sex just happens to be something that happens in the dark at night by accident, and we don't really know, like, how do we get there or what's going on. Another thing I would like for couples to talk about, and this is probably from more of my, well, let me say it this way. If you have in your head, these are the sexual things that I'm willing to do in a dating relationship, these are the sexual things I'm willing to do in a marital relationship, have that conversation somewhere, somehow, because how would your partner know that you're saying no to this now in the dating relationship because you think that should be held for marriage? You know, or now that you're married, which has happened to some people, this is now off the table because I don't want to do that with a marital partner with that. I would also advise you to really sit down and think about all of those kind of hangups that you have with that, so that you can articulate that to, you know, a new person in a very crass way to say it. Like, I've heard guys say things like, the lips that are on my dick are not the lips I want kissing my kids. And so that's kind of, you know, a hang up. But if that's your sexual preference, then that needs to be articulated somewhere, please, in some type of conversation with that. So that's my 2 cents. All right, who else wants to jump in and just what's covered up for you guys?
I think I also just want to put an input of, like, what does that trust look like?
Ooh.
Does that trust look like I have a paper from the doctor's office that says that I am clear on these STDs or STIs before we have sexual relations? And do we each have a piece of paper that we show each other? Like, is that the way that we're verifying that we're okay? Or are we just going to be like, oh, you went to the doctor, cool, I trust you, and move on? Like, you know, what does that look like? And how does that proceed? And then also, because I saw a video on Facebook about this, you can get oral chlamydia. You can get oral gonorrhea. Like, if you have interactions at all, sex, kissing, you can get an STI. You can get oral herpes, which is like the cold sores. Like, there are a lot of things that you can get. And so, like, if you are giving fellatio or head and they're not wearing a condom, you can get an STI in your mouth. Like, and so just like, I hate to be like the rain on the parade. Like, I don't want to, but like, you need to be aware of what is out there and how to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why they have flavored condoms. Like,
right. Oh, okay. I also want to say, like, if you don't know what STDs are out there, if you're unaware of the things, the CDC has a pamphlet on everything. So feel free to go to the CDC website. Also, YouTube probably has a video on everything, on some basic just things to know about the various STDs, what's on the rise, what you need to look out for with that. And just kind of also just kind of be conscious, like just conscious. And I know the tendency is when we're love and it's a new relationship and we're so excited and it's so hot and heavy and, you know, it's fabulous. Enjoy the fabulousness, but I do want you to keep your feet on the ground just a little bit, just a little bit. So, because a lot of these, like herpes, a person may not know they have herpes until they've gone to get tested with that. And last time I talked to a doc about herpes, they said, this is what you need to know. If a person has had more than 3 sexual partners, they probably have herpes. If they have had less than 3 partners, but one of their partners has had more than 3 partners, they probably have herpes. And so herpes is running between, depending on the study that you read, somewhere between 50 and 60% of the population, because it's cold sores. Like at the end of the day, it's cold sores. And so, and it's undetectable a lot of times. Like physically, you can't look and see that you have it. You wouldn't know with that, but you could also have what the doctors call some, what they say, like dry flaking or something. So it may be transmittable, even if you don't have an active open wound. So just educate yourself. Please educate yourself. Educate yourself. And then if you need to go the extra step and like practice having a conversation with somebody, you know, feel free to practice having a conversation with a friend. And if that still feels like, you know, too hard for you to do, practice with yourself in the mirror of just saying words. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I like. And if you need to come in and practice with us as a therapist, like these are the things that I want to be able to say. This is how I want to be able to advocate for myself. This is, and I'm having a hard time saying this out loud. Like we'll take 2 or 3 sessions and just practice with you on what to say and how you want to say it with that. No conversation is going to be perfect, but you've got to start the conversation somewhere. You've got to start it somewhere. And it's okay to say, hey, I don't know how to have a conversation. I don't know if this is the right time, but I'm thinking that, you know, we should talk about what we're both planning to do on this out of town trip next week. If for nothing else, to make sure expectations are set appropriately. Okay, Sherry, what's coming up for you? What you thinking?
I guess I'm still thinking, and I am just thinking about my small little world of growing up, being a young adult, and I'm thinking technology wasn't around. So a lot of these conversations just had to happen because I wasn't just meeting you from an app. I just wasn't meeting you because you DM me. Like I was around you in some shape or form, whether it work, school, classes. So I knew you from a place. And so, you know, it was just very, very, I'm not saying that these conversations are not important, but the awkwardness around it may be increasing as technology is there. Because it could just be simply, I'm at work, you at work. Oh, I like you too. So tell me how many, girl. And these conversations may happen over a period of time.
Yeah.
Oh, you did that before? Oh, you know, what? You know, so you know, so you don't go with that girl no more. And then when we were growing up, someone disclosed everything. Oh, this girl or this boy did this, we did that.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's not really my thing. So it was almost like these conversations just took place because the time of getting to know a person and casual sex wasn't so accepted. I'm not saying it wasn't happening. I'm pretty sure that it was 100% happening, right?
Right.
But what I'm saying is it wasn't so accepted. So I think people were more conscious about having sex with a person. Where we gonna meet at to get this done? Because I can't text you. You know, what if you commute? So I just think, you know, I'm not struggling here. I'm just thinking about it very differently as far as like, why is it hard? You know, and I'm sure that even when I was coming along, not that I'm that old, you know, I was born in 1800s, but I'm pretty sure that along, these things were still
Yeah.
there, right? I'm pretty sure some people still experience the awkwardness. I'm pretty sure it was hard, so I'm not being dismissive. I'm just simply saying, I think that with dating apps and quick connections and, the fact that it's accessible, then it makes these type of conversations even more important and maybe even more stressful because, I don't really know you. I just met you on a dating app. So maybe this is a little bit awkward versus when those things weren't really there.
Yeah.
And you just know old Joe Blow from coming to work every day, and you just have been having these conversations. So it's almost like they just unfolded on their own.
Right. I want to say, for those of you who are out there and you are doing specifically sex hookups with that you have an advantage to make part of the sex conversation, sex safety conversation, part of the hookup conversation with that. And also remember, if you have met somebody on whatever the new version of Craigslist is, and specifically for sexual hookup, also please remember they're probably on there hooking up with other people as well. So just let's kind of be aware and not think, oh, this person's on here one time and we met and we had this fabulous connection. And it was sexually safe because of whatever reason with that. So odds are that a lot of people meet that way, and I'm glad that people are being able to get their needs met. And so just be careful with that and make sure you're incorporating safe sex into your progression. Okay, Jessica Addison, anything you want to add to the story?
Yeah, two things are coming up for me. I think because I guess my younger generation, a lot of things like technology and movies and TV shows are being put up to the public eye. I can remember even in high school, college, even my small group of friends, we have conversations, even with people we don't know of opposite sex. We talk about relationships. We talk about sexual stuff as, are you into that? We have that normal conversation. And I think in dating wise, because it's the AIDS are on a rise and STDs and STIs, because I don't want to be a part of that or a statistic. I think for me and my circle, we have those conversations right off the rip because I like you, but I'm not trying to get something from you. I didn't want to say that. I ain't trying to I'm not trying to get nothing from you. Yeah. And I want people to know, I do know people who have like herpes and they could be born with it. They could have HSV1 or HSV2. Ooh. Sometimes they don't tell people, even if they've been undetectable and they take their medications because they're scared of being looked at differently. But there are some people who are married to people and have long-term relations with people who don't have herpes and their partner does have it and they take all the precautions. So if you meet somebody and if you're scared to have a conversation, know what else you'll be scared to have a conversation about that's other than sex later on and getting to know them. What are you willing to give up? You're willing to give up your voice because you're scared how somebody's going to treat you. But there's a lot of other people out in the world who want to accept you and not look at you differently and see how can I work with you? How can we allow this to work around in our relationship?
No, that's a good point. I want to talk about and Sharon, you hit on this, so I don't know why I didn't say this earlier, but for a while, at least 10 years ago, and I haven't done the latest research, so I don't know what the numbers are, but the STD rates were rising 10 to 15 years ago. They were rising in the kind of over 60 population. Definitely. Jessica, Renard, is that still the case? Are the numbers still rising? Have they still rising?
Yeah, that's one of the issues that I wanted to also bring up as well, because like a lot of times when we're talking about new partners, people think that it's like 50 and below, and it's like STIs are running rampant in nursing homes. Like people are having sexual encounters and they're not thinking about what that looks like now because that was not part of their world when they started having sex.
Right.
I mean, it was. They didn't talk about it.
Well, that generation just did not say things out loud. And so I remember, I don't know if I was in a training or something, or I don't know how I got the story, but I know one older gentleman was like, well, if her kitchen is clean, I believe she's clean.
Yeah.
No. The two
Yeah.
don't correlate. The two don't
The
correlate.
kitchen and the bathroom clean. She clean.
She clean. Like, no, that's not how we track that. So yes, Sherry.
I want to share a true story of somebody that I know that's very, very old who got syphilis, and they pretty much put her in a mental institution.
Yes.
So it was really a horrible experience. And it wasn't the fact that it was a situation like, like 90 something old. And so it wasn't a situation where it was just frowned upon women. So it wasn't that.
Ooh, yeah.
So, it wasn't that it couldn't be tested, it couldn't be talked about. It was, what's the consequence, right?
Yeah.
And it was a really strange situation from them, being that they were victimized.
Yeah.
They caught it from their person that they love, and then it turned into a whole big ordeal, a whole big embarrassing situation. And so then, I just wanted to share that because you talked about, hey, people that talk, and it was more like people did talk, and like everybody in the neighborhood probably knew, but it was more of a, what's the consequences? It's sort of like almost going into where you was going at first. What would be the consequence of suffering the shame and guilt around this situation happening?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was talked about, but not talked about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, and I think what I want people to take away from that, no matter what age you are, whether you are 15 or 55 or 85, 95, and you're going to have a new sexual partner, you have to have a conversation with them on how are we going to keep each other safe. Like it has to happen. It has to happen. It can happen in a light, flirty way. Y'all can shop on Amazon for flavored condoms together, but it really needs to happen. And again, if you need to practice with one of us, feel free to call one of us and practice. Like, what should I ask? What should I say? If you're older female and you haven't had sex for a while, you may want to start with a set of dilators first to kind of because vaginal atrophy is a real thing with that, and we want you to have an enjoyable experience. Also, if you're an older adult, you also need to probably have a conversation about like hip and back and positions and just what are we expecting with this, and what makes great sex, what makes for great sex. So, all right, those are my 2 cents. My biggest thing is have the conversation and keep having conversations, because you set up the precedent that that's something that we can talk about in this relationship with that, Oh, one last thing. Don't yuck my yum. If your partner says something, do not say, "Oh, that's gross. I can't believe you like that," because you will shut them down and they will not tell you anything else with that. And so when you enter into a conversation of likes and dislikes around sexuality or anything, please just take a step back and say, "Okay, that's interesting." But do not judge them for anything, because you'll shut them down and you won't be able to get the truth with that. All right, last thoughts, anybody?
Yes, I'm sorry. Even though I'm a
No,
little
go.
dragged.
You hot today, Sherry, and go.
My wheels are, my processing level is a little slow today. So I'm still, stuck at the beginning of the conversation.
All right.
So I just wanted to say, because it's just the whole little conversation piece and how it comes about. We grew up in the Magic Johnson era, and we grew up in the era where, the ignorance was out there and it was real, right? We believe in that we can't even sit next to a person that could be HIV positive because somehow she literally jump off you and jump onto me. Like, we kind of taught that in school, but kind of not. It's like a little gray area where maybe it was implied but not really stated. And so I'm saying, growing up in that fear, sort of, that I don't want to have HIV, I think forced maybe us to have more conversations in that time period. And then now that people are taking more control, and those conversations did happen in my time period. Maybe people are starting to become more relaxed and not having a conversation, just assuming that people are going to take responsibility for themselves. And who's going to really lie about having something, or who's going to be that irresponsible and not know that they have anything and not realizing that that's still an issue.
Yeah.
I feel so brain foggy. Like everything I'm saying is not really making sense. But
no, it's making sense. And I think that's exactly what happened. In my generation, when I grew up on TV, we had commercials. This is your brain on drugs. And simultaneously, they were also saying, and drug abuse could lead to AIDS with needles and everything. And so there was this whole push for it. And then I think that's when we started seeing STD rates go down and everything. And then I don't know if there's been a cultural push against it. And then Magic Johnson, as wonderful as he is, I don't think anybody even remembers that he has AIDS half the time. It's or he was diagnosed at one point. And so it doesn't have, where in the 80s, we saw people like drop dead, like you have AIDS and they're gone 3 months later. We don't see that today. And so people don't give it the same. We got to go. We all got to go. It's 10:01. So, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize time was going. All right. This is a conversation we're definitely going to have to continue. Bye, ladies. I'm going to cut it off there. I hope you enjoyed our content today. We are here at Atlanta Sex Therapy to serve. If you did like our content, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Also, click the little bell so you can get notifications when we put new videos out. People don't know what sex therapists do, and we're trying to get the information out there and spread the word. So I'm going to ask you to send this to 3 people, because you never know who may be in need of more good information about sex. Thank you, and just have a wonderful day in life.